Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to News and Views on Salam Media with Fazlin Franceman Talib. In this particular segment, we're going to be unpacking the Muslim vote. Many analysts, political analysts, have stated that the Muslim vote is probably the most fluid vote in this particular election. And this is largely due to a geopolitical issue, i.e., what is happening in Gaza and Palestine. And so, with us today, we have a former member of parliament, Ghaleb Cachalia, who will be unpacking the impact of the Muslim vote, whether we can consolidate it to maximize its impact, and whether or not parties have actually done enough to court the Muslim community. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Ghalib. How are you?
Walaikum salam. I'm very well on this rainy day.
Yeah, yeah. So just to unpack a little bit the Muslim vote, we know that largely due to the Palestinian issue and what is happening in Gaza at the moment, a lot of South African Muslims, particularly, but South Africans generally, yourself included, I think have sort of made a political transition. And that is largely, whether it is on a humanitarian basis or just something that people feel that they cannot inherently support certain political parties. That being said, we know that the vote is fluid generally. That's what analysts are telling us. But do you think, because we're not homogenous, we are different races, different classes, different economic statuses, and from different areas with different upbringings, do you think that different political parties have done enough to appeal to the Muslim community in terms of getting this so-called fluid vote?
Look, only the African National Congress has taken an unequivocal stand on the issue of Gaza and Palestine in general. Every other party, to my knowledge, apart from an independent or two like Zaki Ahmad, has taken, every other party has taken a pretty similar non-committal or rather a view which is not in favor of or anti-humanitarian situation in that part of the world. Now, the result of this is that people, and it's not just Muslims, people are appalled at what's going on there. And across the world, and it's mirrored in South Africa. In South Africa, we have taken a notable stance in the ICJ, and as such, we're in the front benches leading the discussion on issues like this. And people, as I say, are appalled. Now, it's all very well in terms of politics. Remember that this is a national election. In terms of politics, in terms of local elections, to say, yes, it's local issues are very important. Keep the lights on, keep the water clean, keep the ports running properly. All those things are very, very important. And it's necessary to use some of the parties' rhetoric to rescue South Africa in those terms. But rescuing South Africa is necessary but not sufficient, because what we do here is has to be in sync with how we see the world going forward. And if there are humanitarian excesses across the globe, wherever they might be, and currently, for very good reason, Palestine is center stage because 35,000 and more people have been obliterated. An entire region has been obliterated, and there is more than that, a push to exterminate, I think, or to certainly get these people out of that territory. Now that is an unacceptable situation, and people are reacting to it. People are saying this will not accept. Now the Muslim vote is large. It is. I imagine that the vote something of the order of 600,000 plus, certainly plus people in this country. That's not small in the scheme of things. And most of those people actually vote. which is very
mm,
important. So they, a lot of them would have been exercised in the past by by rescuing South Africa and dealing with the untenable situation we find ourselves in. But now they are saying, hold on a minute. You've got to address this issue. And those who have not addressed it with any degree of humanity or decency, who have pandered to the
mm,
West's agenda on this particular issue, which is a shameful agenda, which is an agenda which
mm,
maybe now at the 11th hour says maybe we'll call for a ceasefire, but we'll continue to provide arms to Israel uh, uh, to when the ceasefire ends so that the bombing can
mm,
continue. That is untenable, and people are reacting to that.
mm,
They are going to vote
mm,
in that particular way, wherever they may be. And that vote
mm,
is substantial. It is more substantial in certain provinces than others, uh, and
mm.
and those results will be felt in some which way.
Mm. So, if we zoom into the Western Cape specifically, where the Democratic Alliance obviously is the majority party, polling, and this is polling. So, if we look at Ipsos polling prior to October 7th, it was already seeing that the DA was dropping. Now, analysts are saying with the fluidity of the Muslim vote in the province, it could impact on the Democratic Alliance. However, I want to ask a question just based on what's happened on social media in the last 2 weeks. So we've seen for example, Muslim families hosting the mayor of Cape Town. And I agree with you, this is not a local government election. However, obviously, he is a member of the Democratic Alliance. And we've seen several outreaches and obviously a deliberate marketing campaign targeting the Muslim community and showcasing a Muslim community support. So my question here is because you know in Cape Town, we have, or in the Western Cape, we have a relative gap between the poor working class and the middle class, specifically within the Muslim community. I would venture to ask: is it easier for the middle class to say, okay, we are going to vote based on the Palestinian issue, and the poor and working class not that much? And the reason why I say that is based on what we're seeing. Now, obviously, that could all be a marketing spin, but I'm just wondering whether the poor and working class are going to abandon their local issue-based things for an international agenda and aligning with a global humanitarian feel, or whether they'll do what I think the middle class will do, which is to say the Palestinian issue is the most important issue in this particular election.
Look, what comes to mind is a video that I saw relatively recently uh, of a woman in the Cape Flats who was being filmed as many Metro police cars had come in uh, to repaint or oversee the repainting of a Palestinian flag on council property. And she
Mm,
said, and remember, this is extreme working class people.
mm,
She said, "Where were these cars when our children were being shot at? Where
mm,
where were they then? Why are they here now in force to paint a wall when our children's blood ran in the street and they were not there?" Those are pertinent
mm,
questions and they need to be
mm,
answered. And those are the kind of questions which people, working class people, are going to ask themselves or are being asked by activists on the ground. And
mm,
answers must be forthcoming.
mm. So do you think that there's the possibility of the Muslim vote actually uniting? You referenced 600,000 as a possible number. If we look at the Western Cape, we look at Gauteng, we look at KZN, where there's relatively large pockets of the Muslim community. Is it possible to unite around a political party and use that power in a strategic way? Or do you think it's going to be decentralized between a lot of smaller parties?
I really don't know. All I can tell you is that the Muslims across the board, across class lines, across color lines, and across geographic lines, are generally, if you were to ask them, utterly appalled by the situation in Palestine, and they are appalled by the reaction of most parties to this particular issue. They are
mm,
also not fools. They can see through with some transparency, the opportunistic overtures by some people and some parties, and they will
mm,
take a keen view on this. Some will not vote, a lot, which is in tune with a lot of people who are now saying, you know, for the first time in my life, I don't know who I'm going to vote for because the
mm,
situation uh, locally and internationally is broken and no one is particularly addressing it in any which way, shape, or form. They're all
mm,
crowding the space to fight for their own particular vested interests. And 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 that sort of attitude spills over. But there is certainly going to be a large portion of the Muslim vote which hitherto voted for other parties, not least the
mm,
DA, because in the face of the ANC's, let's face it, dire mismanagement of our economy and our resources, uh, who have hitherto voted or thought of voting for the DA are now pulling back and saying, actually, they need to get their act in gear. And the DA has been given considerable opportunity to do this, and they have not come
mm,
to the party, starting with
mm,
starting with ejecting me from my
mm,
position as shadow minister because I chose not to be silenced, and then
mm.
me deciding to leave because I felt that this issue and other issues I could not live with in a party that I once thought was the party where I could find a home, where the values were sound, but the practices thereof seem not to be.
Mhm. So if we were to explore the overtures made to the Muslim community, so I think it would be disingenuous to say that the ANC took Israel to the ICJ because of getting the Muslim vote. But I mean, I do think that there's an element of genuine wanting to be on the right side of history. However, the net effect is that that has possibly been the biggest attracting aspect for the Muslim community to the ANC. But do you think it's done enough? Like, is that issue, that particular thing, taking Israel to the ICJ, is that the kingpin thing that you think will sway people to the ANC? And then, from your own understanding, and I know you said this at the beginning, there are very, very few other political parties that are actually making clear stances on the Palestinian issue without being, sort of a both sidism. So I think the question simply is do you think the ANC has done enough to court the Muslim community? And if so, what else could they possibly do, both on an international level but also locally?
Look, the ANC historically has twinned its struggle and the struggle for freedom in this country via Nelson Mandela's particular utterances with the struggle of the Palestinian people. That is
Mm,
clear. Other parties have steered away from this. They have not been able to connect the dots, if you like, between the struggles of people in this country and the struggles of people outside this country in terms of settler colonialism and in terms of the appropriation of land and the displacement of people with our struggle in our country. And
mm,
that is something which is not lost on people. The ANC, for all its faults, and there are many, have always championed this, and it has always been in the background. And that is not lost on people because it appeals to the emotions and to the hearts of people. Now, if you do not, if you do not touch those particular issues or shy away from them, then you are going to leave the door open to the ANC to capitalize on those particular issues. And
mm,
when the ANC takes the initiative and takes Israel as it did, and I agree with you, not opportunistically, because they actually believed it was wrong, and
mm,
that shined with the majority of people across the globe and with majority of Muslims and other people in this country uh, who agreed with the ANC's position. Then that places them in a position where people say, you know what, for all their faults, I agree with them on this particular issue, and I may consider, despite their faults, voting for them. Now that is an opportunity lost for opposition parties. There isn't a
Mm,
single opposition party which unequivocally says that the struggle of the Palestinian people is mirrored or should be mirrored by our struggle. And we need to support them unequivocally, just like we ran with our particular struggle in our country for those very same reasons. And when you do
mhm,
that, and when you say that, then that chimes with people's fundamental views about displacement, about redress, about issues and diversity in this country, and they begin to understand that these things are linked. They are not, as some parties say, oh, that's a foreign issue, let them deal with it,
mm,
with our local issues. There's no such thing. The world is one.
mhm. And that was former Member of Parliament Ghaleb Cachalia, who highlights the importance of the Muslim vote, its possible fluidity in this election, and also the overtures that parties probably need to make to be able to court the Muslim community in the run up to the national and provincial elections. Shukran so much, Brother Ghalib, and we'll chat soon, inshallah.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.